Yeah, here we go now, baby. Right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Monday edition of Before You Bet. Aaron live right now on the Covers YouTube and X channels. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button right down there. So we got another mega show coming up for you guys today. We got Monday Night Football. We got World Series Game 3. We got a bunch of college football to discuss with Brad Powers. And I think we have, 8 or 9 games going in the NBA here tonight. And yes, I'm seeing in the chat here, Jigglypuff. I want to bet a 4-way Equinox parlay. We have got one for you guys. We've each added a leg covering the NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, and NBA. We'll drop that throughout the course of the show. So what a fun day yesterday in Major League Baseball. They had the day off. In the NFL, the witching hour, an all-time great witching hour once again yesterday on Red Zone in the NFL. And the Miami Dolphins, this team, what's that noise, guys? The Dolphins continue to bring me down. I just brushed it off now, but you know who brings me up is the New York Jets. So we're going to talk about them a little bit on today's show. So a lot to get into. So let's get into it with my first guest here, the man with the sexiest smile and all of sports betting, our guy Jingles. What's up, buddy?
Joe. Beat up in week 8. The non-posted play, sure, but like my personal stuff, there was just so many things like that return touchdown that wasn't a touchdown in the Indy game would have been massive for Houston, that it could have came back, and I just needed a couple more yards from CJ Stroud. Anthony Richardson is absolutely the worst quarterback in all football. That was he was just, I think he was like 2 for 14 in the first half, and his only big completion was that busted coverage to Josh Downs. It was maybe the most exciting 1 p.m. finish I think I've ever witnessed. So.
Yeah, it was great. My bets did all right. I got burned by Brock Bowers by a few yards once again, but my favorite bet of the week, the under, and Saints Chargers came through. It got a little sweaty at the end there, but it did come through. A very active live chat here so far. Hey, brother, Canadian Looney, I know who that guy is. What is up, my buddy? Guys, drop your best bets for the Monday Night Football game, for the World Series game, for the NHL, for the NBA. Hit them all up in the live chat right now. Let us know why you like these bets. What interesting angles do you guys here for tonight? We will read a few off throughout the course of the show. Okay, Jingles, let's start like we always do on the Monday show. A little bit of a recap of what we saw out of the NFL yesterday, our biggest winners and losers. Let's start positive, and I will start. My biggest winner of the day yesterday, Jameis Winston. And, we took a big dump on this guy on last week's show. He was in the biggest loser section for saying some stupid stuff after the game. But he kind of redeemed himself here with his play yesterday. So 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, and most importantly, a win as a 7-point underdog versus maybe who was the hottest team in the league, the Baltimore Ravens, a divisional opponent. Number 2 on my list of the biggest winners, and I've had them in the section before this season, the Washington Commanders fans. Fans of this team have been down bad over the past couple decades here. And what they witnessed yesterday in person, that's an all-time great moment that those fans are going to remember for the rest of their life. And no exaggeration, that's going to be probably the best moment this franchise has had in a couple of decades. That was awesome what we saw from them yesterday. So they went into that game looking like maybe it was going to be potentially a write-off, right? They were an underdog. It looked like Daniels, leading up to it, I think most people would have predicted that he was going to sit. No, he did not sit. He ends up playing and throws for over 300 yards. They're now 6-2, first place in the NFC East. They are at the Giants next week. And my third biggest winner of the week, we love to dump on this team when they're down, but now they are up. I am talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, so we can probably chill out a little bit on trashing this team for at least a week here. 5-2 on the season, despite all the issues that they're having. They've outscored their last two opponents 65-20. Talk about a team that's down. Frustrating season for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And Jalen Hurts runs 3 in, throws in another one, played a pretty clean game. They got the Jaguars on deck, so they are on a nice little run here, the Eagles, so don't count them out. Okay, Jingles, your biggest winners of the week. Who are you looking at?
Just pointing out to Jigglypuff, 1-3 on Friday. Not great. Alex Matheson had a million chances at the goal line, didn't score anything. He didn't have anything going with that offense. Same thing with your Bowers play. He was looking great in the first half, and then Noodler Minshew did absolutely nothing. He pulled the Dak move in the second half and just no-showed late in that game. That was frustrating. Had Chase Brown over 12 and a half carries for plus money. He finished at 12 as that offense apart in the second half. Cincinnati, they keep drawing me back in, Joe. They keep drawing me back in, just like Seattle. And I'm like, yeah, maybe this team's turned a corner. Guess what? No, they both got the doors blown off them. So my winners early in the week, Kyler Murray. And I have to hat tip to you, Joe, for bringing up that stat about his back-to-back straight up record. I think it was 0-11. So this week, yeah, this was the first time he's hit that since 2021. He's won back-to-back games for the first time. He threw for 300 yards, more than one TD for the first time since his rookie year. It was nice to see him get everybody in that offense involved. Comeback win. Sorry, Joe, but Kyler Murray looking good. I mean, Cousins versus Tampa Bay. If this guy could play Tampa Bay every week, we're talking about an MVP. What has he done versus Tampa Bay in 2 weeks? 75% completion, 8 touchdowns, 785 yards, and 2 wins. Atlanta, 1 game up on Tampa Bay in the division. -2.5 on the look ahead here. Dallas. I mean, we saw what Dallas is. They're one of the most predictable offenses in all of football. Might have to go back to the well on the Falcons, who will probably burn me in week 9, but that -2.5 might move to -3. And kind of piggybacking on your Commanders fans, Jaden Daniels, offensive rookie of the year backers. Anybody that got him 9-1 is looking pretty good now. He's -450. He just needs to stay healthy, and it's pretty much his as the things go. I'm really upset that I didn't pair him, offensive rookie of the year, and Dan Quinn for coach of the year, because that would have paid pretty well, and they're both betting favorites.
Okay, let's get negative. Let's have some fun. My biggest loser of the week. I've seen this team mentioned in the live chat once or twice already. The Chicago Bears. This is not a serious football team, a very low IQ football team. So a lot of things went wrong for this team here yesterday. So they didn't score a single point until there was about 45 seconds remaining in the third quarter. This play that they ran on the goal line, they handed off to an offensive lineman who fumbles the ball. Like, how stupid of it. That's as low IQ as it gets there from the Bears. You got to pick on Caleb Williams a little bit here, too. He only completed 10 passes for 131 yards. That Commanders defense is not a good defense. They've been lit up a lot this season. And then the end of the game, the Bears have the game in hand. Probably not a game that they should have won, but they got the lead very late in the game. They allow a 52-yard Hail Mary. That dink, that stupid moron, whoever that guy was in their secondary, is showing off to the fans, takes himself out of the play, then runs in and tips it right up to the guy. What an absolute moron that guy was. And that's a monumental loss that the Bears could not afford to have. I will tell you why. They haven't played a divisional game yet this season. They have 6 divisional games left. So they're in a lot of trouble. They might miss the playoffs because of 1 game, and that might be the game yesterday. Second biggest loser of the week. We got to go here again. It is the New York Jets once again. And this is just getting absolute. If it wasn't already absolutely pathetic, it is now. So you lose as a touchdown favorite to the New England Patriots, the team that you beat by 21 points back in week 3. How do you allow Jacoby Brissett to go up the field and have a game-winning touchdown, not field goal winning drive, a touchdown winning drive? And this is whatever below rock bottom is. This is now 5 straight losses for the Jets, who keep doubling down. They're 0-3 since firing Robert Saleh. And now we have to watch them on Thursday Night Football against the Houston Texans. And this is only going to get worse. This isn't going to get better anytime soon for the New York Jets. And I'm going to tell you why. This team is in a lot of trouble if Aaron Rodgers decides he wants to return to play for this team again next season. He is under contract to play for them next season. Now, maybe he retires. Maybe he forces his way out to go on another team. But this team is in need of a massive culture overhaul. They got some talent that's shoved down our throat every single week. This team is really talented. Yeah, they got some good young guys. But they're not going to be able to overhaul anything if Aaron Rodgers is still there at quarterback, and they're going to be in the market for a new head coach. What serious head coach candidate is going to be like, yeah, sure, a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers? That sounds like a good opportunity for me to sign up for that. Absolutely not. You think Mike Vrabel is going to sign up for that? Rodgers has completely regressed. So they are an absolute joke. And somebody else who is an absolute joke, I don't know if this guy is going to be in the NFL a couple of years from now, Anthony Richardson. Week 8 of the NFL season, Anthony, who is 22 years old, the guy who's constantly praised for how fantastic of an athlete he is. And he checks himself out of the game because he gets tired. Anthony, this isn't pickup basketball at the YMCA on a Tuesday night. He's only completed more than 10 passes in a game one time already this season. I don't think Anthony Richardson is built for the NFL. Those are my 3 biggest losers of the week. Who are yours?
I really wanted a lot of that action that you had there too. And I think Robert Salah might deserve to be on the winners section after what we've seen out of the Giants, because that is rock bottom. Like, Drake May was looking good too. And like, to see Jacoby Brissett come in and they're still running the ball and you can't beat that, it was pretty, I don't know, Jets fans on the ledge, let's just say. But let's go. Titans special teams. Insane. The production that Detroit got, putting up, 52 points, 225 yards of total offense, 5 for 5 in the red zone. How did they do it? Detroit started 5 of their drives on Tennessee's 26-yard line or better. They had a punt return for a touchdown. Punt returner Khalif Raymond had 190 yards on 5 punts. They had 1 kickoff return. That went for 72 yards. Tennessee is somehow a 3-point favorite this week versus New England. That might go to 2.5 after what we saw out of Tennessee. That team is hurting. I don't mind Mason Rudolph, but everything else about that team is awful. And speaking of 2 awful teams to keep burning me, I already mentioned it, Seattle and Cincinnati. I want to trust them, but they were 2 teams without their top wide receivers. I know people want to think Jamar Chase is the number 1 in Cincinnati, but I think T. Higgins means more to that Cincinnati offense than anybody else, because that offense looks awful without the both of them in it. And it was bad. And we saw Chase Brown do absolutely nothing. On a week I had him over 12.5, and he was just 2 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards. The offense couldn't do anything. They gave up, 20 straight points at the end of the game. They were in it until they weren't. Cincinnati, 7.5-point favorite this week. And Seattle, a pick 'em versus the Rams. Pretty interesting lines there for 2 teams who, again, will probably look great next week. But last week, they showed their Jekyll and Hyde, and that was the issue with that. And then the last one is obviously everything in Dallas. I lost that boost by 7 yards. They get it. Dak has a chance. 4 downs, doesn't make a single completion. That was bad. That offense is the worst rushing offense in football. It's obviously not getting any better when Ezekiel Elliott's your starting running back. Dalvin Cook's there too. They're just predictable. And Dak Prescott, I think multiple interceptions in 4 of his last 5 or something. I think he was plus 500 to throw 2 picks. Awful.
Not good under the spotlight. So I guess the 49ers kind of back on track, though. It's kind of funny, though, in the AFC, there's a lot of really bad AFC teams that people thought would be in the mix. The Jets, my Dolphins, of course. The Bengals, I think they got to go 7-3, and they'll probably have 10 wins. So I don't know, but that's the problem with the Bengals. Everyone does that, right? Like, hey, they got all the talent in the world. They got Joe Burrow, who went to a Super Bowl once. So that's how you get in trouble with that team, right? So I'm going to try not to fall for it myself. Okay, Monday Night Football, not the sexiest looking game here. Pretty low total, I think 36 points. I'm staying away from that, staying away from the side. I'd probably lean Pittsburgh. I'll tell you right now, we have a sports Equinox parlay. I should have told you this. I did tell you guys off the top. The first leg of it is we're going something simple here. Pittsburgh Steelers money line at home versus the Giants. We'll reveal the rest of the legs as we go throughout the show. But we got 2 props each for this game. We each like something for Daniel Jones. We each like something for a Pittsburgh running back. I will get us started with Najee Harris. I like him to go over his rushing yard total, 62.5 yards. And how about a little bit of goddamn respect here for Harris? Back-to-back 100-yard game performances for him. He has topped this number of 62.5 in 5 of 7 games this season. And how do you beat the New York Giants? Well, multiple ways, let's be fair, but the number one way is to run the football. They rank last in the NFL in yards allowed per attempt. And what do the Pittsburgh Steelers like to do? Run the football. Second in the NFL in rushing play percentage. So expect to see Harris with his hands all over the ball tonight to go over 62.5 rush yards. And you like his backfield mate there to have an impact on this game as well.
Yeah, volume. Heavy Pittsburgh running game. It's set up that way. And it will probably just get nuked and will be, I don't know, the Russell Wilson passing show somehow. But this is one of the heaviest running offenses in all football versus one of the worst rush defenses in football that gives up over 5.3 yards per play. Jaylen Warren, third game back from injury. He's going to get going again. He's coming off season high in snap share 50%, route share 53%, and carries 12 last week when our man Najee had 20 plus. But look for something around a 20 to 12 split would be pretty awesome this week. And I'm expecting a lot more running. You got the spread, you got the game script, you got this offense that maybe is a little high in terms of public perception on what they were or what Russell Wilson is as a passer. Still not, let's say, a great passing offense. You got your healthy backs. Let's run. And this is just where a spot where I don't think it's priced in, where Justin Fields' ability to take away rushing attempts and yards from these backs isn't totally priced in. 121 of his 231 rush yards were on designed runs. That's obviously not something we're getting with Russell Wilson. So there's more to see within this offense in terms of yards for the running back opportunity. So let's go Warren, add him to the list of running back props that I think are going to hit pretty good here today on Monday Night Football.
Okay, interception prop. We are targeting Danny Dimes in prime time because that's the bet you should be making when Danny Dimes is in prime time to throw over half an interception. Allow me to explain. He has thrown 11 interceptions in 7 career Monday Night Football games. He is at his worst in prime time, and that's saying something, picking on the guy a little bit here. But he has a quarterback rating of 70.3 in primetime games in his career, 20 picks in 15 primetime games overall. Steelers defense pretty good at picking off the football. They've picked off 4 separate quarterbacks twice this season already. And Danny Dimes, this guy's throwing it a lot here this season. He's had 3 games already where he's thrown it 40 or more times. So I expect him to be chucking it here tonight. And for him to chuck at least 1 interception. Jingles, what do you like or not like for Danny Dimes?
I might have to hit his over 1.5 interceptions as well, just like we saw with primetime games last night, especially to protect this. Daniel Jones over 187.5 passing yards, minus 110. This number has just fallen way too low. 6-point dog facing an elite rush defense with healthy receivers. That's how that game script set up. You already mentioned he's passing 40 or more times in multiple games. He was 225.5 yards last week versus Philadelphia. And now he's tied for the lowest total that he's seen all season back in week 1. He was benched last week. But the way it sounded with Brian Daboll, he was saying he did it to create a spark. I'm not sure if he'll get benched, but it looks like it could be priced in. There is a slight worry. So I might have to add that 2 interceptions. I think the 2 interceptions is where they draw the line in terms of how he will play 4 quarters or not. But I might add that one too. But I like the over 187.5. The blitz projecting over 200 yards. He's got healthy receivers. I mean, Malik Neighbors could go for 100. And you can't run versus this Pittsburgh defense. We've seen it before. And this is not a team that runs the ball particularly well. So it's set up very well for the Giants to have to pass, maybe in garbage time to get this, but Pittsburgh to run and control the clock early in this game.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on the Giants here. Like, it's one thing to lose, but you can't be as pathetic as they've been in the past couple of weeks. Whether they have 10 points over their last 2 games, and I know it's so convenient. We all love to point the finger at Daniel Jones and make fun of him. But here's the problem, New York Giants. You've known this guy's been your quarterback for around 3 years, and you've known that he isn't very good. And you keep running it back with him. Plenty of backup quarterback options that you could have gone out there and gotten over the year, right? What's that? They paid him? Yeah, they paid.
And they paid him.
That's like another part of the issue here. But my God, Giants, like, I find Brian Daboll gets a pass, and that general manager absolutely stinks too. But, that kind of flies under the radar, it seems. Maybe not with Giants fans.
Getting away from MetLife might actually help Jones, who his back-to-back home games where he's put up 10 points in his road games. Seattle, 29 points. Cleveland, 21 points. At Washington, 18 points. But
The
at home,
splits are
it's
crazy.
been
Make no
the splits
sense whatsoever. All right, Major League Baseball Game 3 of the World Series going down tonight. The Yankees, a minus 155 favorite with Clark Schmidt on the mound. I don't know about that. Walker Buehler had a good start his last time out in New York, but at the Mets, Dodgers come back at plus 130, a total of 8.5, with the over juiced to a minus 122. I'm going right back to the well here, guys, with a bet I made, I think, on Friday's show. It hit on Saturday as well. It is Giancarlo Stanton to go over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. This guy's a big game hitter. This is hitting in 9 of 11 playoff games so far in the postseason. He has 33 total hits, runs, and RBIs, and 11 games. He's much better at Yankee Stadium, too, where his OPS was 210 points higher compared to on the road this season. And Walker Buehler on the mound here for the Dodgers. Dodgers fans might be feeling pretty good about that after that good start he had against the Mets, but this guy's been wildly inconsistent. So these are his earned runs since the start of September. 2, pretty good. 5, really bad. 1, pretty good. 4, really bad. 1, pretty good. 6, really bad. 0. You see the pattern I'm talking about here? He's having a hard time stringing together solid performances here. So maybe we could see Stanton get to him early. Maybe goes deep in the first inning. I would like that. Cash the bet right away. I also like Schmidt under 4.5 strikeouts. I found that a bit high, but I just submitted one for the show. But I will be betting that on my personal.
2-0 in the series. Like if he's bad out of the gates, Joe, like he's gonna get the hook pretty quick. No.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's almost an all hands on deck situation almost for the Yankees bullpen, at least. I mean, they had the day off yesterday. They're not going to bring Garrett Cole into the game, but yeah, maybe I cannot. I laugh my head off when they bring Nasty Nestor Cortez into the game today when he hasn't pitched in 35 days. Okay, what's your best bet for the game here, Jingles?
I do want to hat tip. I don't know who on covers put it out there for game 2. Neither pitcher to win was minus 120. I played that in game 2. It lost, but with both pitchers today, I don't like neither of them could get to 5 innings, let alone be a tie game or have a change of score later in the game. So I like that one, but looking for plus money, we're going Tommy Edman. Now, I'm very aware of his splits. He hits higher in the lineup versus left-handed hitters and down versus righties, but this is a good price at plus 135 in a lineup that is stacked top to bottom still. He's hitting 365 in the postseason, 13 RBIs in 13 games, and he's done some damage versus right-handed pitching. Game 1 versus right-handed pitching, 2 hits, 1 run. He can get it done. Clark Schmidt's, I mean, he's not the end-all, end-all, and then plus we have some not great hitting conditions there, so I kind of lean on the under 8.5 a bit tonight, but Tommy Edman, just to keep it rolling, he's the number 2 betting favorite for the World Series MVP behind Freeman for a reason.
Okay, Sports Equinox Parlay. We have the Steelers money line for Major League Baseball. I'm adding Juan Soto over 0.5 hits. I think that leg's around minus 160. Now for the NHL, you submitted Sabres and who?
Sabres, Panthers.
Sabres,
I had
Panthers.
over 6, and you forced me to go to what, 5?
I forced his hand to play it a little safer. So the alt total over 5. Tell us why you expect some goals in this one, and then we'll shift over to Brad for college football.
Just Florida's kind of a dead over team right now with how they're playing. I think they've allowed 3 goals in 9 of their 10 games so far. Buffalo can score. Buffalo can give it up, and I think the top lines are going to produce today. So keep stacking those lines and keep cashing in on those stacks.
Yes, sir. Stackman. All right, buddy. Thanks for joining today. You're going to be right back with us on Thursday's show where we get to talk about the New York Jets. But you got a lot going on. Make sure
it
you're
seems like the same teams in prime time, right? Like, will we see Russell Wilson again in week 10? Will we have another game at MetLife Stadium? Like, give me something exciting, please.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, buddy. Thanks for joining. Best of luck with your picks, and we'll catch you later in the week.
All right, later. Good luck with your bets, guys.
Yes, sir. All right. Very active live chat here today. Guys, let us know what you like tonight. Any interesting angles in Monday Night Football we should be considering? What about Game 3 of the World Series? Can the Yankees get back into it? Or are the Dodgers going to choke? I wouldn't be shocked. It's their series to lose now, though. Okay, let us go down to sunny Las Vegas now. Talk a little college football with a guy, Brad Powers. Brad, what's shaking? How we doing?
Well, a funny story for you. About 20 minutes ago, I don't have any power, so I'm doing this on my phone. So I apologize. You got to have a close up on my fat, ugly face. But interesting. Vegas, it never ceases to surprise. About 3 times a year, you got a power internet issue here, and it just so happens to be right now.
Well, Brad, as long as we can hear you, that works. If people just want to hear your sweet voice and your takes on what happened and some of these best bets for the week coming up. So let's start like we always do on the Monday show. Take your two biggest takeaways of the week here, of the week that was in college football.
I think you got to start with Colorado not getting enough love, believe it or not. And this the last couple of weeks. I mean, they're now 6-2. Another impressive win and cover against Cincinnati last week. And then you look at their upcoming schedule. The Buffs are going to be favored in their last 4 games. They play a lot of disappointing teams coming up: Texas Tech, Utah, Utah, Oklahoma State, and Kansas. All 4 teams that haven't met preseason expectations. So there's a possibility that this is a double-digit win team. What's that mean? Obviously, they're alive in the Big 12 race. You could see as high as 8-1 right now to win the conference. And obviously, we'll talk about Heisman here in a minute, but Travis Hunter, more than alive in the Heisman race, especially if the Buffs continue to win and he continues to have big games. So they're in the mix. The other one would be simply strength of schedule is not getting properly priced for these teams. Teams like Ohio State, Texas have been exposed once they started playing opponents. And I think there's a reckoning coming for teams like Army, Pittsburgh, Indiana that haven't played anybody yet, but still sit unbeaten.
Okay, let's talk a little Miami Hurricanes football. Another big win here, if you want to call it that, I guess, on the weekend. They are now 8-0 on the season. They're around 8th on the national championship futures odds board at 17-1. Now, the big argument is they haven't really played anyone, right? So how do they stack up against the big 4 of Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas?
They'd be significant underdogs against those teams. I mean, especially Georgia, they'd be close to a double-digit underdog on a neutral. Ohio State, they'd be catching 7.5, even though Ohio State doesn't look that great. Oregon, they'd still be catching around a touchdown. So the reality is it's two-front. Number one, you look at their schedule. I mean, I don't see how the team doesn't go 12-0. In fact, I looked at my highest projected win totals. They have the highest in the country. They just don't play a soul. They're going to be a double-digit favorite in the remaining 4 games, including this week. They're laying 20 against Duke. So they're probably a sure thing to get in the playoff. I guess the most actionable advice I'd give once they get to the playoff and finally play somebody, the ACC championship game, obviously. But those last 2 games, ACC championship game and playoff, I'm looking to fade Miami because they haven't played anybody. And I think that defense will further get exposed.
Might get fraud checked here once we get to the playoff. Okay. Speaking of the playoff, I love this market. Will they or won't they make the playoff? And I'm looking at Texas A&M minus 125 to get in. Now, 7 straight wins for them. They got off to a rough start against the Fighting Irish there in week 1, but they haven't lost since. Handled their business in ranked matchups versus Missouri and LSU this past weekend. Now, they do have Texas waiting for them at the end of the season. They're only favored by 2.5 against South Carolina here this weekend, I believe. But it's minus 125 odds for Texas A&M to be one of the teams to get into the playoff. Is that a bet we should be hammering? What am I missing here?
I'm not hammering it. Well, it'll be a little tease for a couple minutes from now. There's multiple reasons why. I think schedule, okay, it looks kind of favorable, but I don't think it is. South Carolina this week, there's a reason why that spread's only 2.5. They're at Auburn. Texas, they'll be a home underdog. I'm not buying the team. In fact, I think they're a little overrated right now. Kudos for them for getting the win against LSU, but they've actually been outgained in 3 of their last 4 games. They've rebounded, but they haven't been overly dominant. I can't trust them to win out. And I think 2 losses, especially if they weren't to make the SEC championship game, I don't think they're necessarily a slam dunk to make the playoffs. So I'll say this. I think by this time next week, you'll be getting a better price on Texas A&M to make the playoff if you want to bet it.
Okay, let's talk this roller coaster ride that is Alabama football. My question for you, is Alabama back? They win 34-0 against Missouri. A big knock on them was their defense. They get the shutout win. LSU on deck here for them. So is Bama back?
No. They played nobody last week. Missouri, okay, top 25 in AP ranking, but not in a top 25 in a Vegas power rating. And on top of it, they played an injured starting quarterback in Brady Cook that obviously could not go and finish the game. And then they played a backup in Drew Pine that is simply not a Division I quarterback. You saw him throw 3 picks. I mean, he's just terrible. So I'm not buying, even though it looks great. Not buying it. In fact, I said Missouri team total on Friday's show was I was looking to get at, and obviously the Missouri big goose egg there. Uh, We'll find out in a couple weeks. They're at LSU. I don't like them in the game against LSU. In fact, I think they lose that game. So
Ooh,
3-loss
okay.
Alabama's not making the playoffs, so they're not back.
Damn. Okay. Let's talk the Heisman odds board here. Big shakeup here. Ashton Genty drops out of the top 3. He's sitting there at 4-1 now. Dylan Gabriel, the new favorite, hot on his heels. Cam Ward, and then Travis Hunter there, plus 330. Any thoughts on the big shakeup?
Yeah, I didn't think it was fair to Genty. I mean, he ran for over 100 yards, had the game-winning touchdown. It was the toughest game he's going to face the rest of the season. They're on the road against UNLV. They win the game. I get it. He didn't put up a big 200-yard spot, but, I mean, if that's how you're going to grade him, I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, they didn't grade Cam Ward that harshly. Cam Ward threw for 200 yards, 0 touchdowns against a bad Florida State team, and he didn't get knocked too much. I guess I'm not surprised. I don't think it's fair, but I'm not overly surprised. It's a quarterback award. I mean, obviously Genty's a Cinderella. It's, Cinderella is invited to the dance, but there's a curfew type of thing, like we say in March Madness. I think when it's all said and done, it'll be Gabriel or Ward. Just to look at those schedules for those two teams. I mean, they're both likely to finish 12-0. They'll put up monster numbers against bad defenses. Hunter will be in the mix. I just got done saying I think Colorado's got a good shot at 10-2. If that's the case and he has a couple of monster games, then he'll be in the top 3. And when it's all said and done, unless Genty has multiple 200-yard type games, 3, 4, 5 touchdown games, gets close to Barry Sanders' record, he's not going to win the Heisman.
Okay. It is now time, Brad, to get into a couple of best bets here. We have 2. Let's start off with SMU -7 taking on Pitt. Why do you like SMU to cover here as a 7-point favorite?
One word, turnovers. You look at the two teams' games from last week. It couldn't be any more disparate. In fact, I can't recall a time when it's been more disparate between two teams playing. You look at Pitt, beneficiary of not 1, not 2, but 3 pick sixes against Syracuse last Thursday. They were +5 in turnovers in that game. A fraudulent final, outgained in a blowout win. On the other side, SMU won last week, despite the fact they were -6 in turnovers. That's historic. When you're -6 in turnovers, you're not winning football games, especially, and we're not talking about a 35, 40-point spread. We're talking about a relatively competitive point spread. So they overcame all that. Says to me that they're a little underrated. So Pitt overrated, SMU underrated. Pitt hasn't played anybody really yet. I like SMU to roll.
Okay, let's wrap here with a fade of a team you just took a big dump on. You like Carolina +2.5 taking on my Texas A&M Aggies, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to need the 2.5, but let's go ahead and make it, South Carolina +2.5. I think they'll win the game outright. They're off a bye. It's a great spot at home at night. It's a very underrated atmosphere at South Carolina. Just got done saying A&M's kind of fraudulent, been outgained in 3 of their last 4 games. That LSU win looks impressive as far as the final, but I mean, LSU missed 3 field goals, had a couple of turnovers that set up A&M for short, quick touchdown drives. I add it all up. This is a South Carolina team, lost 2 close games against LSU and Alabama. You changed 1 play in either one of those games, and we're talking about this point spread being picked. So I'll take the value here on the Gamecocks.
Okay, there you have it, Brad. Another efficient appearance here. Thanks for making things work here. Hopefully when we're talking to you on Friday, your power is working. So best of luck with all your handicapping, and we will catch you again on your appearance here on Friday. We'll break down the biggest games of the weekend and probably have a few more best bets as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me as always.
Yes, sir. The man right there. And we keep on rolling to the 4th league. We're covering it all here, except for NHL. We have a great show here on the Covers YouTube channel where the boys cover the NHL. Make sure you are subscribed to the Covers YouTube channel. Let's move on to the National Basketball Association. And I talked to our guy, Jon Metler. John, let's put together the 4th leg of the Sports Equinox Parlay. So if you're just tuning in, we got Steelers money line. We got Juan Soto over 0.5 hits. We have over 5 between the Panthers and Sabres. And your leg for the NBA, what do we got?
I'm going with the Phoenix Suns money line against the Los Angeles Lakers. That's the last leg there. We're going to use from the NBA. They just played 4 or 5 days ago. Lakers had a huge comeback to win that game. The Suns were up by like 20. They were super, super sloppy. I think the Suns are a tough matchup for the Lakers. So even though the Lakers won a couple days ago, I do like the Suns to kind of rebound. And it's also probably so fresh in their mind that they blew that game. It's only like 4 days later. So I feel like the Suns will probably get like a, a little revenge kind of angle there too as well. So I'm going with the Suns.
Okay, there we go. A plus 358 sports Equinox parlay. We bet that over at where else? BetMGM. So if you want to tail, head on over to BetMGM and plug that in. Okay, each team in the NBA, most teams have played at least 3 games here, John. The Cavs off to a great start. A plus 20.3 point differential for them. Not much of a shock here to see the Celtics flying to start the season. The Pistons and Wizards haven't won a game yet. No shock there. Some people are probably surprised the Lakers off to a pretty good start, although you think they're going to lose here tonight to the Suns. Joel Embiid still not playing. Like, I knew he was. What's going on there? Like, did I miss something? Because I checked the box score of the game yesterday and I see Embiid didn't play. Is there a report on when he's supposed to start the season here? What's going on?
He's ramping up. We
Oh
don't
my
really
God.
know when
Is that what it is? He's not injured? He's ramping up?
That's the report. Yeah, he wasn't ready for the season to start. It wasn't like the initial thing was like the no back-to-backs, like periodic time off, but then you kind of got surprised with he's just not even going to start the season. And then it was like, he's just going to miss the whole opener. Now it's turned into 3 games and it's kind of concerning. Like even when you saw them lose to the Raptors, right? And they could have lost yesterday. They just barely won that game. I think Maxey had like 45 points. Like They can't cruise control here into the playoffs. At some point, this team's got to get going with the Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Maxey. Otherwise, they'll fall too far out of it.
Ah, man, I try to shut up. I drive myself nuts for half a decade now, complaining about load management, Kawhi Leonard, all this nonsense, and I try not to complain, but this is just insanity. Big picture, any big thoughts from you from what we've seen so far in the NBA, or is it simply, hey, we're only a couple games in, let's not go crazy about anything?
I think the couple concerning like issues for teams you thought would be really good. One, the Denver Nuggets. I think they're 0-2. Jamal Murray just doesn't look like Jamal Murray did a couple years ago. And then, you also lose KCP. That's another team where you're kind of a little nervous to start. I think the other team you're nervous now after last night is the Golden State Warriors because Steph Curry has an ankle injury and he's going to miss some time. We don't really have a time frame on that yet. I imagine we'll probably get that later today. But that's one team like, Steph Curry's like their superstar, and then it's a bunch of more role players. So that's a big, big loss for them. Again, in the Western Conference, like you can't just go stretches without, if Curry misses a month, that's a huge loss for the Warriors. The Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo came out and said they need to find an identity. They don't have one. I can't believe we're doing
this. They got to get a new head coach in
there. Like Doc Rivers had a whole offseason to kind of put this together and stuff. And now we're back. It feels like we're kind of like back to square one where they were last year with this team. So maybe we can go hot take here. Maybe Giannis Antetokounmpo does get traded or something happens. I just feel like it doesn't feel right there. So
you cannot be losing to the Brooklyn Nets this early in the season, right? And it's funny because I woke up this morning and I didn't follow the NBA very closely over the weekend. We had the World Series, a UFC during the day, NFL, of course, yesterday, college football. So I look at the spreads here and I see the Bucks are a plus 9.5 point dog in Boston. I'm thinking, well, Giannis must be out. Maybe Dame. No, that does not appear to be the case. Celtics are such a wagon and the Bucks are off to such a nasty start here. So, that is concerning, absolutely, for Milwaukee. Okay, John.
I'm just going to touch on what Ian said there in the chat. I think that's kind of what bothers. We've talked about this before, too, is he said, Embiid played in the Olympics, but he's not ready for the season. That's the weird one. It's like, I understand the back-to-back. He is a different type. His body is different relative to other players and stuff. So I don't kill him on the whole. Like, I'm not going to play back-to-back. But the fact that he played in the Olympics and he's not ready for the NBA regular season to start, that's a weird one.
It's embarrassing. They gave him that massive extension. And we're
That's
probably
fair.
not far off from the Sixers fans absolutely turning on this guy. Like, this could go south really quick. Like, there probably was a bit of a window there. You know, my ultimate idea was that he was going to get traded to the OKC Thunder for a bunch of those first-round draft picks. That's not going to work out. So, you know, these big guys that get injured all the time, Zion, these guys don't get healthier as they age here. And yeah, if I was a Sixers fan, I would be furious that he played in the Olympics and now he's not ready for the NBA regular season after they extended him. They gave him all that money. Okay, enough complaining. Let's get positive and hope we can have a positive profit here tonight. We have 3 picks in the NBA, a couple props for John, a couple totals for me. John, get us started here with Al Horford. What do you like for him?
So one Al Horford over 2.5 assists. So when you just look at like Porzingis is out, Horford's their main big man, and Horford's 38 years old. There's only so many spots in your schedule where you really even do want to push the minutes of Horford. Obviously, the Celtics are thinking big picture as well. Against the Milwaukee Bucks, to me, this is that spot because they're big and their front court, you know, you're going to need his rebounding. You're going to need his size. You're going to need his rim protection against Giannis Antetokounmpo, against Brook Lopez. So I just think this is kind of a spot where you will see those minutes for Horford. Like, they just played the Pistons and the Wizards. Those are 2 games where I'm not interested in Al Horford prop because I really don't know. And he only played 20 minutes against the Wizards. So it kind of lines up. I think this is the spot you need him, and he will see those minutes. And then also on offense, you know, Brook Lopez, good shot blocker, good defender, can protect the rim. Horford's a great 3-point shooter. You're going to use him to pull Lopez away from the rim. That's just kind of the strategy that you need to do against the Bucks. You need to get that rim protection away. The Celtics are obviously really, really good at that with their 3-point shooting. Horford should be involved in quite a bit on the perimeter just because, again, you're trying to attract Brook Lopez. And Horford just really, he honestly just gets assists by just swinging the ball. Like, the ball's moving like crazy, and any Celtics player is going to shoot a 3. So at 2.5 plus 135 now, I'm still playing the over.
Okay, I think we're going to have a track meet here in Memphis with the Bulls in town. I'm going to go over 232. It is a big number. I am not scared of the big number here. So look at what these teams have done so far this season. Small sample size, but a sample size needs to start somewhere. A lot of running up and down the court. They rank first and second in pace to open the season, zipping up and down the floor. 6 games combined this season. They've topped this number in 5 of those 6 games. Chicago has crossed 240 points in 2 of its 3 games, and expect a lot of easy buckets in this game. Grizzlies are 27th in opponent free throw attempt rates, playing some dirty defense. Meanwhile, the Bulls are getting killed in the paint at 27th. They rank 27th, in points allowed in the paint. So I think that could be a fun one there in Memphis. John, we have 2 picks for this game. You have a prop. I have a total for Rockets Spurs. What are you looking at for your prop?
So I'm going Jeremy Sohan over 2.5 assists plus 110. This is, they just played on Saturday in San Antonio, same spot. I just played this number on Saturday, the exact same prop. I couldn't believe it was the exact same price. 2.5 plus 110 was the exact bet I placed. The thing with Sohan is we only need 28 minutes to establish like a really, really big edge on this number. And I thought he would play more than on Saturday. He did. He played 37. So right, like Greg Popovich is telling you, against the Rockets in the spot, I trust Sohan. He's a part of our game plan. So when you see that, and it's just ironic that we just get to play it like 2 days later at the exact same number, same matchup, everything's pretty much the same. I'm coming right back to this one. And the more like the basketball reason as to why I like Sohan and why I did place this on Saturday is because, one, you've seen it with Chris Paul. When you get to give potential assists to Victor Wembanyama, those get converted around the rim. And Alperen Şengün is not really a center who can stop Wembanyama around the rim. Like, he's not like an elite shot blocker or anything like that. So that was the angle I was playing on Saturday. I'm coming right back to it at this price on Monday here as well.
Okay, let's stay in this game. It has a total of 219, and I am going under for this matchup. So low scores have been the norm in this series between the 2 teams down there in Texas. 4 straight games between these teams have gone under this number. They combined for 215 the other night. Look at what these teams have done so far this season. Houston, they've only played 3 games, of course, but they are struggling to shoot the ball to open the season. 28th in EFG shooting percentage for the Spurs. Meanwhile, really sloppy with the basketball. 26 in turnover percentage, So what does that mean? That's going to equal a lot of dead possessions, especially against a team like the Rockets, who is pretty good at forcing turnovers. Meanwhile, the Spurs don't shoot a lot of 3-pointers, 29th in the NBA in 3-point attempts per game here. So I think that one's going to go under 219. John, bring it home for us. Everyone's favorite player, Tobias Harris. What do you like for him?
When you initially said let's get positive and talk about the picks, I was wondering if Tobias Harris was going to be the first one we talked about, because that's not much of a positive note for anyone. But I'm going Tobias Harris over 12.5 points, minus 120. I could just see this kind of like starting to happen with how he started the year. I knew we were going to end up having to play an over here on Harris. So he's gone under 3 straight times for the Pistons. On opening night, his total was 15.5. It's now down to 12.5. I mean, that's a pretty big move when these numbers are already kind of, pretty low here. That's a whole 3-pointer. The thing with Tobias Harris, I mean, he has a role on the Pistons. You're not really guessing like what his role is. And he's going to play 30 plus minutes. He has in all 3 games. Like, even they've kind of been blown out in these games, and he's still playing 30 plus minutes. So 12.5, they're going to need his scoring. I think against the Miami Heat, I think Eric Spoelstra is a really, really good coach. They're going to find a way to kind of more shut down that Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham backcourt. And they're going to need a third scorer. And I think that's going to be Tobias Harris. Also, just kind of like that narrative angle as well. He's playing Jimmy Butler, and they don't get along. Jimmy Butler made the comments after he knocked him on the playoffs, Tobias Harris over me. So obviously there's that personal kind of vendetta both ways here, Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris. So that should keep Tobias Harris somewhat motivated. It's really just a play on the number. 12.5 is such a low number for someone who's going to play those minutes and should get the shots. You just got to make them, which that's a big question mark with Tobias Harris all the time.
Tobias Harris has done pretty good for himself. Not much is expected of this guy. He's probably got like $300 million in the bank. Tobias Harris has a pretty good for him. We'll stay positive about Tobias Harris on today's show. Okay, let's recap the picks here that we gave today. We can do mine to start here. Harris over 62.5 rushing yards. Daniel Jones over half an interception. Jingles went with Jalen Warren over 7.5 rush attempts. Daniel Jones over 187.5 passing yards. Onto the NBA, I went Bulls Grizzlies over 233. Rockets Spurs under 219. John went Al Horford over 2.5 assists. Jeremy Sohan over 2.5 assists. And Toby Harris over 12.5 points. And if World Series too. God, a lot going on here. G and Carlos Stanton over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. That is from me. And Jingles went Tommy Edman. Same bet, but a plus 135 odds. And let's bring up that parlay again, if you would, producer Mick. Everyone's doing these today, so why not jump on board? Sports Equinox parlay. Steelers money line. Soto over half a hit. Suns money line. Sabres, Panthers alt over 5. We bet that at BetMGM. Make sure you check that out. Okay, so that does it for today's show. Guys, a loaded show. We fit a lot into around 45 minutes here today, and we're going to be right back with you tomorrow. Professional sports bettor Hitman will be by. We got World Series Game 4, maybe potentially a closeout sweep situation for the Dodgers. Must win here for the Yankees. And, of course, Jon Metler will be back breaking down his favorite NBA props, and I'll probably have a few too. So thank you guys very much for tuning in today. Thank you to my 2 guests for joining. Thank you to producer Mick for producing. Thank you to BetMGM for sponsoring the show. Best of luck with all your parlays tonight, everybody. We will catch you guys again tomorrow. Woo!